Our next guest on the Pam Goodwin Show is one of the biggest stars on the radio. She is the co-host of the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show, co-host of a Sandwich and Some Lovin' podcast, host of Love Letters to Kelly podcast, and owner of eknme.com. Well, thank you, Kellie Rasberry, for being on the Pam Goodwin Show. It's so great to talk and to meet you. I started listening to your radio show, the Kidd Kraddick Show, when I moved to Dallas back in 1996, and been listening ever since. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. You started listening about 2 years after I started. I started in 1994.
So that's great. I read that there's only, 32% of female DJs out there. Did you know that?
I didn't.
So you're honestly, one of few.
I'm kind of surprised it's that high. But, I never have considered myself a DJ because I don't spin records or play the music. I tried that one time. I asked when I first started in radio. I was always the news girl, the personality, but I was like, I want to be a DJ. And they had me do the overnight shift. That's how you kind of learn the ropes. And I dealt with one drunk phone call too many asking for me to play 38 special. I'm like, I don't think this is for me. So I've been, I'm a, what would you call me? More of a morning personality, a radio personality, but I don't think DJ fits.
No, I think I like morning radio hosts. I'd love to, I read about your bio and how you wanted to be an actress, but if you could tell our viewers how you landed the position you did in Dallas, because now you're, more than 27 years. I find that amazing to be able to remain in a position that long. So I'd love to hear your background.
Yeah, I came to Dallas when I was 27, so I've been here exactly half my life. But I started off, I wanted to be a sitcom actress. That was my dream. And I lived in Florence, South Carolina, a very small town. Probably no one listening has heard of it. But it's about an hour inland from Myrtle Beach. Most people know Myrtle Beach. Anyway, there was one modeling acting school in town, and I signed up, and they had a convention where I met the owner of a radio station. His daughter also wanted to be in the entertainment business, and he suggested I consider radio. And at that point, I enjoyed the radio, but I never thought about being on it. So anyway, he knew the man that ran the station in Florence, South Carolina, and told me to call, and I did. And they gave me a job, a little part-time job, and I held on to that for a few years. But somebody that I worked with in Florence, he had big dreams. His dream was to move on to the big city. We were in Florence. He dreamed of working in New York and of working in LA. And he would always read these trade magazines. There was one called R&R. It stood for Radio and Records. I don't even know if it's still around anymore, but there was a job ad to work with some guy named Kidd Kraddick in Dallas that I'd never heard of at that time. And he got me to audition for it. And I sent in my tape, and I came in and auditioned with a bunch of other women that I didn't know. We each auditioned a week at a time. And apparently Kidd and I really connected, and we went on to work together almost 20 years until he passed away in 2013.
I know, listening to your show, the both of you really, really had the chemistry for a long time. So I know his passing, I remember the day it happened too. And so I can't believe it's been that many years, but I know you two are a team, and the Kidd Kraddick Show moving forward, and I love to hear that.
Yeah, we never really seriously considered change. There was some talk about what are we going to do after he passed away, and we never really thought about changing the name of the show. It was the slightest change that I don't think a lot of people realized. It went from being Kidd Kraddick in the morning to the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show. So that's the only real change we made. And there was talk of bringing in other hosts, but you can't, that chemistry thing is that's such a hard, thing to find. They'll throw two radio personalities or DJs together, and it doesn't always work. But what we had really worked. And so the core of us are still there, JC, Big Al, and I. And then we brought in Anna and part-time Justin, because, as we're all getting older, I've been in the Dallas area since I was 27. I've been doing radio since I was 19. I'm getting older. And so it's important for us to keep bringing in, young voices so we can stay relevant with a larger audience.
So I decided to do the Pam Goodwin show because I find so many women have a hard time, either breaking away from corporate and they want to, do a new position. And so what do you recommend if someone wanted to get into radio? What is the best way that you recommend? I mean, especially where you are at your level. I mean, you're nationally known. You're one of the best in the industry. I'd love to hear your advice.
Well, it's getting harder, honestly. When I started, I was 19 years old. I literally called the local hometown radio station and said, hey, this guy says I'd be great on the radio. And he's like, well, come on in. I mean, that's how simple it was back then. But I was also in Florence, South Carolina. I don't think that would work necessarily in Dallas, Texas. But, what I always tell people is we usually hire interns, non-paid positions to get college credit, and they get their foot in the door that way. And they just have to really, prove themselves, to be passionate, to bring ideas, be creative, enthusiastic. Because radio, when you start out, you're lucky. I started off making minimum wage, and that's probably what people start off with now. I think they all think that everybody on the radio is rich, just like they think everybody doing the news is all rich, but it's not. You have to really put in the time and build up your career. You can make money at it, and it's been very good to me, but it's tough. It's tough getting started. So, if you're not getting college credit, if you're already well past college years, just apply for any job at a radio station. It might be in promotions. It might be as a sales assistant. But if your dream is to be on the air, then even in those positions, you can get ideas to the morning show host or to the afternoon guy, because they're always looking for content. We're trying to be funny and relevant. And if you've got a great idea, you just, show that passion for radio. And if it's something someone really wants to do, nothing's going to really stop you. We've had a lot of people that came into radio that were talented and funny people, but when the money wasn't there, they were like, man, I've got a wife to support and kids to support. I can't keep doing this. And they would bail. But other people, that's because it wasn't their passion. They were good at it, but it wasn't their passion. So I can't talk anybody out of, my goal when I go to colleges is to talk people out of doing radio, because
really?
It's really hard. It really is.
Yeah.
It's hard to get started now. Everything's going the way of syndication. So I do my best to talk somebody out of it. But if that's really what you want to do, I can't talk you out of it. And that's what you're meant to do, And it's just getting your foot in the door at any way you can, and then shining. And that we've had part-time people, interns that are now on the air full-time with us because they were that good and that passionate.
That's great. I know you have the early morning show. How I've always wondered, I'm like, how does Kellie wake up early every morning and then have to be able to talk for close to 5 hours every single day? Or
not 4, yeah. After we get off the air, we have to, do record commercials and things like that. So it is really talking for about 5 hours, I guess. You just do it. There's no secret to it. Big Al says it the best. He's one of the co-hosts on the show. Mm-hmm. He said, they don't pay me to do the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show. They pay me to wake up. Oh. Everything else I do for free, because it is such a joy to do what we do. But the honest to God, hardest part of our job is when that alarm clock goes off in the morning. And some people say, oh, I'm sure you've gotten used to it. No, you never get used to it. I hit that snooze button so many times every morning to the last possible minute. And you just do it. You just do it. You just get up and do it. You have a few cups of coffee, and hopefully by the second break, your tongue is loose and your thoughts are more lucid. But yeah, it's just something you do. But I love when Big Al said that. They don't pay me to do the radio. They pay me to wake up.
I like that. I remember, when he started, he was driving the limo?
Yes, Big Al's limousine, First Impressions limousines, and he did commercials. He paid, and it was a lot of money, but he put all of his advertising budget into doing live commercials on the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show. And he was just so funny and came up with all these weird, wacky promotions. And that's how he got his foot in the door. So Kidd brought him in and started letting him hang out with us on the air. And of course, being on the radio with us, his limousine business took off, but he had to make a choice. I can't do both and do both well. So he let the limousines go, and he's still with us. He's been there almost as long as I have. It's been over 25 years.
Right. He was on the show when I moved here, started listening to you. So it's been, which I can't believe it's been that long. That is a long time.
It doesn't, in some ways it does feel like forever. In some ways it feels like yesterday.
That's great. And now you also have a podcast with your husband, Alan, which...
Two podcasts. Okay.
It's funny. I used to see him working out where I worked out in Plano, and then I'd see him at Snappy Salads. And and I wanted to say, I cannot believe all these years of living here that I have not run into you. So
I eat with him at Snappy Salads.
Okay.
I didn't go with him to the gym.
Maybe.
He wanted me to work out with him. I said, "Do you want to stay married?" We didn't work out together. But about a month before we got married, we just celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary. But about a month before we got married, our boss came to us and said, because he was podcasts are a very big deal. Everybody has one now, but this is 4 years ago, and he thought that we should start one. And we were like, "Oh, okay." It wasn't our idea, but we thought, well, we're blending families. He was coming into the marriage with 3 children. I was coming in with 1. And we thought that would be an interesting show to talk about blending families. But after about 6 months of that, what else can we talk about? So we just started talking about everything. And so it's kind of like just what's going on in our lives, a few pop culture things. We just, whatever's happening, but it's called A Sandwich and Some Lovin'. And it's doing so well, we started doing that twice a week. So it drops every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Central. And then the Love Letters to Kelly segment that we've done on the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show for almost as long as I've been there, we turned that into a podcast. We started around Valentine's Day of 2020, right before the pandemic. So we just celebrated just over a year of doing Love Letters to Kelly's podcast, and that drops on Wednesdays.
Oh, that's great. I know you've had the chance to, interview a lot of people on the show, and I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, but who's your favorite person you've interviewed, and who would you still like to interview?
That is such a hard question. I remember John Bon Jovi was really awesome. This was when he was still with Bon Jovi, when Richie Sambora was still in the band, and he came through one time, and he was just so awesome. He got out his guitar, and in that morning he sang Bed of Roses with his acoustic guitar, and it took me out of my body. He was a wonderful, wonderful interview. We've had so many great ones. We've Dwayne Johnson came in. He was fun. Who else was really great? We've had, a lot of the local talent. Demi Lovato, before she became Demi Lovato, she had done Barney locally. And she came by our studio and stood on the sidewalk outside of our studio and sang Kelly Clarkson. And, we still play that tape before she went on to become really big. So Demi Lovato is a great interview. Kelly Clarkson, we've always had some great ones. Who have I not interviewed? Gosh, the thing is, I can't think of anybody because we've interviewed close to everybody. I was going to say Jennifer Lopez. We've interviewed her several times. We've interviewed so many people.
I think you've interviewed everyone almost.
Pretty much. We haven't interviewed Tom Cruise, but I think he would be intimidating. I don't know that I'd want to interview him. That's the thing. Some of these really big celebrities, even though I've done this a million times, I still get really nervous. And I remember when I had to interview Reese Witherspoon, I talked the entire time. I could not stop talking to even ask her a question because I was so nervous. And I've done this for years, so I still get intimidated.
Oh, that's funny. I love that. And then I read that I've also seen and heard that, talking about the product that you developed with your daughter and wanted to see how that's going and how that came about.
Well, Emma, Kellie, and Me is what it was called. The original concept, listen, sometimes you just jump in and learn as you go. And we learned a lot of lessons with Emma, Kellie, and Me. So my idea was shopping for my daughter. She's now 14, but several years ago when she was 8, 9, 10 years old, I would go shopping, and she's in that, not a little baby girl, but not a teenager yet. And I was having so much difficulty finding clothes for her that were appropriate, in my opinion, and cool enough in her opinion. So my dream was to start this, online clothing and accessories brand that would be, Emma, Kellie, and Me approved. But my reputation in this business is for being very frugal, we'll say frugal. And when I went to market and things, and I started realizing, in order to, I couldn't pass a certain price point, or my audience would not accept that. But in order to, do something I think they could afford, these things, these were cheap. They were cheap clothes. So I was like, this isn't making me feel good. I don't want to sell cheap things, but I can't compete with like a Nordstrom Rack or these other online businesses that can do free shipping and things like that. And it was just so hard. And it wasn't bringing me joy. And it wasn't at all like what I thought it was going to be. And we did away with the clothing aspect of it. And I don't want to get rid of it altogether, but I think what I'd like to do is to concentrate on the accessories side. So during coronavirus, we just kind of pressed the pause button. And like I said, we're not scrapping the idea altogether, but we're going to look at it through different eyes, because now we know a lot more. And I had a wonderful woman, I'll give her a plug, the Zigzag Stripe Boutique. She has a warehouse outside of Arlington, and she started in her bedroom, and she has this huge mega warehouse with all these workers and computers and things like that. And my mouth dropped, and I was like, could I ever get Emma, Kellie, and Me to that level? And she was just a wealth of information. She was so encouraging, but it just wasn't the right time. And I made a mistake. I'm not saying I made a mistake. I'm not going to say that. But it wasn't a huge success as for what I envisioned. When we first launched, everything sold out. That's success, right? Mm-hmm. But then I had to replenish, and it was just Pam, it was so hard. It was so hard, and it wasn't bringing me joy. So why am I doing something that's so hard and doesn't bring me joy?
Right.
I just danced around that whole thing. But, do I wish it was a screaming success? Do I wish I had a huge warehouse and I was employing 50 people to fulfill my orders? Yes, but that's not the way it turned out. But I'm not saying we won't revisit it later.
Well, so many women do not try or take action.
Yeah.
So just taking action to see if it works or doesn't, I think is just a huge success right there.
Some people, research for years, and they are paralyzed because all they do is the research and the studies and, all these things, and they interview people and get advice, but then they never jump in. I went the opposite approach. I just jumped in, and then I found some wonderful people that were so generous. People want to help. They love being asked for, advice and help, and it just wasn't the right time. That was a very long answer to your question, Pam. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I help a lot of small business owners in retail, commercial real estate, and I know how difficult it is, but I give everyone credit for just taking that leap and having that dream.
Right. And I was, before COVID, pop-ups were huge. And I thought we could do pop-ups, because with pop-ups, I could, do a little dressing room. They could try on the clothes there. We wouldn't have to worry about that whole return thing. And it was really bleeding us dry with the returns and all that, because we had to eat all the costs on that. There's so many things you don't think of when you launch one of these businesses. So when right before coronavirus, we were starting to gear up, we were being asked to go to all these charity, how they have charity events, and you show up with all your stuff and you give a percentage back to the charity. We had a whole bunch of these things lined up, and then it all just went away. And that's when we decided to, let's just put a pin in this and come back to it later. So maybe when things pick back up and we get back into more of a rhythm where life is really back to normal, maybe we can, because I don't know that I necessarily want to do a brick and mortar store. I don't think that's the idea, but a pop-up, I could do pop-ups all day. Those would be fun.
Yeah. Have you ever looked into the retail store up at Legacy West, the neighborhood goods?
No, I haven't. I mean, I haven't looked into it.
Okay.
Man, Legacy West, though, that's become like designer row.
Right.
All those luxury things. Emma, Kelly, and me. See, that's the thing is like, I can't sell that stuff. That's not my audience,
The other thing I thought maybe you could get your products if you're interested is like one of the home shopping networks. I thought your product would be a good fit.
Well, it's the thing is I collaborated with, and I could talk to the Parker and Hyde out of Dallas. I collaborated with him on, putting my spin on their purses. So this was already a purse that was already designed that I just added a few details and it was a collaboration. And then the clothing was nothing that I personally designed. I just went to market. I was like an online boutique. So I don't know that I'm allowed to necessarily do that, but I could maybe work on him with actually designing something from scratch. That's a possibility. I used to think I would love to be a QVC host. I thought that was the best gig ever. This is before I got here with the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show, but I just thought QVC hosts with their nails done perfectly every day and their hair, and they just sat around and chit chat, and I just thought that was the dream. So.
I know. I think you'd be perfect for that. You could still do that maybe. And then my next question is I ask all my guests is, you've done a lot. What is on your bucket list?
Well, my husband and I do an annual bucket list where we don't do life, like a life bucket list. We do an annual bucket list. That way it's more tangible. You can cross things off. And so, I was just talking the other day to somebody about it. There's so much of this country that I haven't seen. I mean, I have never been to Boston. I have never been to Maine. I have never been to Oregon. I mean, to see so many of these, great places in the United States, that's a bucket list for me. As far as personal bucket lists, just to get my 4 kids now. I went from having 1 when I got married to having 4. To get them all grown and through college safely and in one piece. That is my ultimate bucket list, is to raise happy, healthy, well-adjusted kids. And that's hard. That is hard with all this social media and TikTok and all this influences that we didn't have when I was growing up. And it was hard enough when we were growing up without all that stuff. So that's my main goal, is to get them to adulthood in one piece.
Right. That's a great one. We have 2 boys in college, so getting them to that point is a big milestone for sure. And
right.
Then one's out at San Diego State, and then the other one just recently came back home to take a break during the pandemic. So he's readjusting, but it is a big accomplishment for a mom to get that done.
Right. I'm looking forward to that. As far as my career goals, I love what I do so much. And I feel like, a lot of people are like, why didn't you move on? Like I got to the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show, but I mean, I've done a lot of great things within, being on the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show. I've gotten, one day I got to host Live with Regis. I got to do that. I got to host the webcast of the Blockbuster Entertainment Awards when those used to be a thing. I get to MC things. I used to do Dish Nation. So I've gotten to do a lot of things while still staying with the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show. But I feel like this is my home and this is where I'm meant to be. And it's just, I don't envision leaving it. I'd like to stay with it as long as I possibly can, but I get to do a lot of other fun things while staying here as my home base.
I know. Well, we want you to stay in Dallas on the radio forever. So that's how everybody, well, not forever, but that's how we all wake up with you. So keep it that way.
You. Yeah, every time I, think, man, how much longer can I do this? But then I imagine one day when I wake up and I hear somebody else on the radio that's not me, I'm like, I don't think I'd like that very much.
Well, I know you're super busy, and I just am thankful and blessed and grateful that you came on the show today. I've been a big fan and listened to you for 25 years now. So thank you so much, Kellie.
Thank you for wanting to talk to me. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.